We go live to the summit of the Group of 77 and China held in Havana. The President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, addresses the plenary.
Of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, Excellencies, Presidents of the countries invited to the G77 and China summit. This summit is about topics on science, technology, and innovation. And because of its symbolism, to gather most of the world in a country that has been blocked. Talking about science and technology, we should see what we are told by science and technology today in its main trends, in its determining effects. I think that should be the context to be the starting point of a debate between us, because here we have different positions. Science today, in my personal opinion, should be the basis when it comes to building any proposal of progressist policies in the world during the last 2 centuries. We cannot separate one progressive idea of the world from a scientific vision. To do it would mean options of religious positions that we should respect, ideological positions that sometimes place us further away from reality. Today, science tells us that the main problem of the humanity of today, of our sons and our grandchildren, is called climate crisis. That is what science says, and it's in the main universities and the thousands of scientists that most of the nations have proposed to the panel of experts, as in a conservative way, say that the most affected by this climate crisis will be the poor countries of the world. Therefore, we all have to talk about it here, because most of us are part of the nations that science calls the poor of the world. And we will be affected because many islands will sink, because will be affected according to some of their models, because from here till 2070, and our sons and our grandchildren, when they are young, in that vital space, most of the places that inhabit this part of the world, they are going to become uninhabitable. And then we're going to forge from here to then, and we're seeing now an exodus that will reach the figure of 3 billion people according to their scientific models. A world like this is inconceivable from the political point of view. It would be a tremendously violent world if it is already, when the flux is of barely 80 millions of immigrants. How it will be then when it is 3 billion? How it will be when the biggest cities become uninhabitable? How will politics be? How will society be? Will there be democracy? Will there be barbarity? Something that is being built now already. That's what science says. And as the mainstream discourse facing that reality that science shows, then we see a group of solution tools. We talk in general, starting from technology, as if technology were a new religion to which we have to put candles to make miracles. of life on this planet. Technology should take us, according to the mainstream discourse, to a decarbonized economy. That is the new concept. An economy without carbon, without oil. The decarbonized economy in this group of 77 arouses debates, and some countries are producers of oil, and they wouldn't like me to say this. And some countries like mine produce carbon, and some countries are islands and are going to be the first to be erased from the surface of Earth with floods, with the exodus of their populations. A decarbonized economy, that is the group of 77. The group proves it and knows how to build it, and it is building democratic ways to allow us to win through a decarbonized economy. And we simply refuse to debate this. An economy without carbon, oil, without fossil fuels would represent the same levels of and social relations of power that in today's world would imply its deep transformation. In my opinion, this concept of decarbonized economy should be taken as a serious discussion by us. How do we build that world? Based on what funding? That's the first issue that I would like to discuss. We have two basic options today: either capital, as it was defined by classical political economy, or public funding. The capital, as it was defined by classical political economy, will only invest in the decarbonization of economy where there are benefits and rentability, and that is a small sphere of the effort that humanity has to do in the whole planet. And that sphere can go from fossil capitalism to decarbonized capitalism, but what caused the climate crisis cannot resolve that issue. It cannot fix the atmosphere and therefore guarantee the life in the planet, including the life of the human species. As like before, we never have come to a conclusion that was written in the 19th century. Capitalism destroys its own foundation. Nature and human being, that phrase written in the 19th century is called today climate crisis. Then without denying space for the capital, knowing that it has been reduced in its own sphere, that are gains, rentability, and profits. And then public funding in the world. And then we have this discussion, because it is not in the final declaration of this event, in spite of being done in the Summit of the Presidents of the South and the one in Kenya. And it's because we can increase those funds in two main ways. One, as it has been proposed from the United States and Europe, by having more debts. And I'm afraid that many members of the G77 accept passively this path in order to solve problems that were caused in a huge place and that continue to be caused in China and the European Union. We would have to be able to save our lives to acquire more debts than the current levels. That is not possible. And then we have another way to increase public funds to reduce the debt. And now my debate even in my discussion, even with the host government. If we don't find the way of reducing the debt, the only way of doing that then would be the capital and indebtedness. That means a reproduction and deepening of the relations of dominance in the world. But if we together state as most of humanity that the third way is also viable and maybe the most powerful, and it is to reduce the debt, and for that we have the experience from COVID, and that is one effect of the climate crisis of the special drawing rights at universal level. It is not a negotiation country by country. It is a universal negotiation of a change of the international financial system. COVID proved it was possible, and it can be even increased. The Universal Declaration of Special Drawing Rights, progressively starting from poverty levels in humanity, paying the debt, not condemning it, to reduce the debt in each country, and then to have budget spaces in the whole world, meaning public funds that allow us to finance the transition to this decarbonized economy. This proposal approved in South America, in Africa, and in certain previous meetings, such as the one in Paris, should be retaken by the G77, because we don't lose there, we win, because in the end when we're talking about public funds, we're saying that first what is public becomes again the center of the transformation of the world, and it is a change in the paradigm. And also, in order to invest in that case, we need to have a plan. We need to, and that is a concept that we hadn't lived as a humanity, to plan at a global scale, to be able to save the life of the planet, to acknowledge in our thinking that human planning is superior to the inhumanity of the market. I don't want to extend my address any longer, but there is something that and it is that today we're killing each other, and that hampers what we were talking about, and we cannot assume the responsibility of the main problems of humanity. And I would call upon the G77 to address this subject of the war, to overcome it, not because we have to take part between Russia and Ukraine, because we should compare two situations explicitly in the world debate. Today, what is the difference between the world, between Russia and Ukraine, and the one between Israel and Palestine, and why that double moral, and then to take part in the war between Ukraine and Russia, and then not in the case of the Israeli occupation in the Palestinian territory. It is the same. It wouldn't be the time for the G77 to propose to the United Nations to have two peace conferences urgently for humanity, and open spaces for the discussions in which the world has to enter the climate crisis, which is a conference of peace on the war in Ukraine, and another one on the Palestinian occupation. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Muchas gracias, excelentísimo señor Gustavo Petro.
Thank you very much, Gustavo Petro, President of Colombia. I will give the floor to His Excellency Tom Sima from the Republic of Gabon.
Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, Monsieur le Président.
We were listening to the statements of the Colombian President Gustavo Petro. The Colombian head of state underlined the importance of creating a new international system and warned against the devastating consequences climate change will have in future generations if actions are not taken now. Petro also said technology must be put in service of people and not profit. In this context, he added that the concept of decarbonize the economy must be implemented as soon as possible. Stay tuned with teleSUR English as we're going to continue giving special coverage to the G77 and China summit held in Havana. We'll be right back.